Have you ever regretted saying something in the heat of the moment? A careless word spoken in anger, a defensive response to unfair criticism, a rushed comment that only made things worse. We often think that speaking up gives us power, but sometimes the greatest strength lies in knowing when to stay silent. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, understood this well. He believed that silence is not weakness, it is control, a tool for wisdom, a way to protect our peace. In today's world, people feel the need to speak constantly, to argue, to justify, to prove themselves. But what if true power lies not in what you say, but in what you choose not to say? This is where Stoicism comes in. The power of silence is one of the most valuable lessons in Stoic wisdom, and once mastered, it can transform the way you handle criticism, conflict, and even your own emotions. In this video, we'll explore 9 situations where choosing silence is not only wise, but life-changing. You'll learn when staying silent can protect your peace and mental clarity, help you control emotions and avoid unnecessary conflicts, command respect without needing to prove anything. By the end of this lesson, you'll see that silence is not passive. It is a powerful action, a strategy, a choice that leads to wisdom and strength. So stay with me until the end, because the final lesson might just change the way you think about power forever. If you're ready, let's begin. Number 1. When dealing with anger. Anger is like a storm, fierce, uncontrollable, and often destructive. It clouds judgment, fuels impulsive reactions, and leaves behind regret. But a Stoic understands that true strength is not in expressing anger, but in mastering it. And the most powerful tool for this mastery: silence. In moments of rage, the instinct is to respond, to defend, to retaliate. But what if the wisest choice was to say nothing at all? The power of Stoic silence in anger. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest minds in Stoic philosophy, warned us, how much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it. The problem is not the event that sparks anger, it is our reaction to it. Anger is rarely about the present moment. It is an eruption of past frustrations, unresolved wounds, and unchecked expectations. And once it takes control, it blinds us to reason. Epictetus reinforces this idea. Keep quiet most of the time, and only speak when you must. This is not about suppressing emotions. It is about controlling them before they control you. When you choose to stay silent in anger, you create space between stimulus and response. You reclaim your ability to think rather than just react. A practical example: silence over impulse. Imagine a moment in your own life, perhaps at work. A colleague makes a mistake that costs you hours of extra effort. Your instinct? Frustration. You want to correct them, to express your irritation, to let them know how much they've inconvenienced you. Now pause. What happens if you say nothing? You take a deep breath. You allow the emotional storm to pass. You assess the situation logically. And when you do respond, your words are not fueled by frustration, but by wisdom. Instead of escalating the problem, you guide the resolution. Instead of damaging relationships, you strengthen them. Instead of regret, you walk away with clarity. That is the power of silence. Why anger demands silence. We have all spoken words in anger that we later wished we could take back. A harsh insult, a thoughtless remark, a defensive argument that only made things worse. But silence is a choice that cannot be regretted. Seneca offers this wisdom. The greatest remedy for anger is delay. Delaying your reaction, choosing silence instead of impulse, gives you power over yourself. And when you have power over yourself, nothing external can disturb your peace. The Stoic practice of silence in anger. So how can you apply this in real life? 1. Pause before speaking. The moment you feel anger rising, resist the urge to speak immediately. Count to 3. Take a deep breath. Let the surge of emotion pass before responding. 2. Ask yourself a Stoic question. Will what I say next make this situation better or worse? If the answer is worse, choose silence. 3. Shift your perspective. Is this moment truly worth losing your peace over? If someone insults you, does their opinion define your worth? If a mistake happens, does anger solve it? Detach from negativity. See the bigger picture. 4. Speak only when you can add value. When your mind is clear, then choose your words wisely. Stoicism is not about never speaking, it is about speaking with purpose and wisdom. The strength of restraint. Many people mistake silence for weakness, but in reality, the ability to stay silent in moments of anger is one of the highest forms of self-discipline. Anyone can react, but it takes true wisdom to remain still. So the next time you feel anger rising, remember, silence is not surrender. It is strategy. It is self-mastery. It is the mark of a true Stoic. And now, let's move to another situation where silence is your greatest ally when facing unfair criticism. Number 2. When confronted with unfair criticism. There will always be people who judge you unfairly, who twist your words, who find faults when none exist. And when this happens, the natural reaction is to defend yourself, to explain, to argue, to prove them wrong. But a Stoic knows that silence is often the strongest response. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Unfair criticism is an external event. It is outside of your control. But your response? That is yours to command. And the most powerful response is often to stay silent. Why do we fear unfair criticism? Criticism, especially when undeserved, triggers a deep emotional response. It threatens our ego. It makes us feel misunderstood, attacked, even disrespected. But what if the problem is not the criticism itself, but our perception of it? Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. If you let criticism consume you, if you dwell on every negative word, you give others control over your emotions. But when you detach, when you refuse to react, you keep your peace. A Stoic approach to unfair criticism. Imagine this. You've worked hard on a project at work. You've put in hours of effort. But when presenting it to your manager, you receive harsh, unfair feedback. It stings. It feels personal. Your instinct is to push back, to justify your work, to argue, to prove yourself right. But a Stoic does something different. They pause, they listen, and they filter the noise. They separate what is useful from what is just negativity. They take whatever feedback can help them grow and discard the rest. By staying silent, they do not escalate the situation. They do not let emotions take over. And most importantly, they let their work, not their words, prove their value. The power of choosing silence. Seneca gives us this wisdom. Don't waste time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. In a world where everyone feels the need to respond, explain, and justify, silence is a statement of strength. It says, I do not need validation from others. I do not let outside opinions disturb my inner peace. I let my actions, not my arguments, define me. When someone criticizes you unfairly, ask yourself, does responding bring me peace? Does it improve the situation, or does it simply feed my ego? If the answer is no, stay silent. Let time and truth do what words cannot. Because in the end, true confidence is quiet, insecurity is loud. And now, let's explore another moment where silence speaks louder than words when faced with boastful people. Number 3. When navigating boastful conversations. There is a certain kind of person who speaks not to connect, but to be admired. They fill conversations with grand tales of success, wealth, and superiority, not to share wisdom, but to elevate themselves in the eyes of others. Their words are not a dialogue, but a performance. And when confronted with such a person, the temptation is strong. You may feel the urge to counter their boasts with your own, to prove yourself, to make sure your own achievements are recognized. But a Stoic knows better. True strength is not in how loudly you speak, but in how deeply you understand. And when faced with boastfulness, the most powerful response is often to stay silent. Why do people brag? Seneca once said, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." People who constantly boast are often lost in their own insecurity. Their need for validation is a sign of inner emptiness, a desperate attempt to be seen as important. But if you are truly strong, you have no need to prove it. You do not need to perform. You do not need approval. You do not need to announce your worth, because real confidence is quiet. A Stoic response: let silence speak. Imagine you're at a gathering. A colleague is going on about their expensive vacation, their promotion, their accomplishments. Their words are laced with superiority, designed not to inspire but to impress. What do? You listen, you observe, but you do not compete. You do not offer your own story. You do not try to match their achievements. Instead, you stay calm, composed, and detached. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. Let them have their moment. Let them seek validation, but do not let it pull you in, because what they seek in words, you already possess in silence. The power of being unimpressed. Boasting is a transaction. It requires an audience. Without admiration, it loses its value. And when you refuse to react, when you remain indifferent, when you offer only a nod or a simple, "That's great," you shift the dynamic entirely. The person who brags expects admiration, but what happens when they don't receive it? They become unsettled, because they realize your silence means you are not impressed. And nothing is more powerful than a man who cannot be swayed by approval. What happens when you choose silence? 1. You protect your energy. You do not engage in meaningless competition. Your peace remains intact. 2. You maintain control. Instead of reacting emotionally, you remain an observer, never a participant. 3. You command respect. A person who does not seek approval becomes naturally respected. People sense strength in those who do not need to prove anything. 4. You free yourself from comparison. Bragging is a game of who is better, but a Stoic does not play that game. A Stoic measures himself only against his own standards. How to practice Stoic silence in boastful conversations. 1. Pause and observe. Instead of reacting, simply listen. Let the person speak. Do not challenge them. Do not one-up them. 2. Acknowledge without encouraging. A simple nod. A neutral, "That's nice." No exaggerated praise. No admiration. Just calm acknowledgement. 3. Redirect the conversation. If possible, steer the discussion towards a topic of depth. Ask meaningful questions. Shift the focus from ego to wisdom. 4. Reflect on your own mindset. If you ever feel the urge to boast, ask yourself, am I speaking to share or to seek validation? If it's the latter, stay silent. The quiet confidence of a Stoic. Bragging is loud, it is desperate, it is shallow. But silence? Silence is secure, it is self-assured, it is powerful. A wise man does not compete, he does not seek attention, he does not chase approval, because he knows that his value is not in his words, but in his actions. So the next time you find yourself in the presence of someone boasting, remember, stay silent, let them seek approval, and let your strength speak without words. And now, let's explore another situation where silence becomes a weapon of wisdom when faced with false rumors. Number 4. When handling false rumors. There are few things more frustrating than being the subject of a false rumor. Lies spread quickly, and once they take root, it can feel impossible to stop them. The natural reaction is to defend yourself, to set the record straight, to confront those spreading misinformation. But a Stoic understands that fighting rumors only gives them power. Instead, the wisest response is to stay silent. The Stoic philosophy on false accusations. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Rumors are an external event. They exist outside of your control. But your reaction? That belongs to you. The more you chase after false accusations, the more fuel you add to the fire. The more you argue, the more credibility you give to baseless claims. Instead of fighting every whisper, let silence be your shield. The power of indifference. Epictetus offers this wisdom. If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but simply answer, he was ignorant of my other faults, or he would have mentioned them as well. This is the Stoic way, to detach from the opinions of others, to let go of the need for validation, to understand that truth does not need defense, it simply exists. A rumor, no matter how loud, is powerless against the reality of your actions. A Stoic response. Silence as a statement. Imagine you are a respected teacher in a small town. One day, you hear whispers, false accusations about your integrity. The words spread quickly, and you begin to feel the weight of suspicion from those around you. Your first instinct might be to confront the rumors head-on, to demand explanations, to fight back. But instead you choose silence. You continue your work with the same dedication as before. You uphold your principles. You let time and truth do what words cannot. Weeks pass. The rumors, lacking evidence, begin to fade. Those who doubted you see that your actions speak louder than any gossip. And just like that, silence wins the battle. What you gain by staying silent. 1. You protect your peace. By refusing to engage, you free yourself from the stress of defending your reputation. 2. You command respect. A person who is unshaken by rumors is seen as strong and composed. 3. You let the truth speak for itself. Words can be twisted, but actions remain undeniable. 4. You avoid wasting energy. Arguing against lies drains time and focus. Silence allows you to invest in things that truly matter. How to handle false rumors like a Stoic. 1. Do not react emotionally. The moment you hear a false rumor about yourself, resist the urge to defend. Take a deep breath. Let it go. 2. Acknowledge, but do not engage. If someone mentions the rumor, respond with calm indifference. People will believe what they want, then move on. 3. Continue to live with integrity. Let your character be your defense. people will see the truth over time. 4. Detach from the opinions of others. As Marcus Aurelius said, choose not to be harmed, and you won't be. The words of others cannot touch you unless you let them. The strength of silence. A false rumor is only as strong as the reaction it provokes. If you fight it, it grows. If you ignore it, it fades. So the next time someone spreads lies about you, do not chase after the wind. Stay silent, stay strong, and let your actions tell the real story. And now, let's move on to another moment where silence is more powerful than words, when dealing with personal loss. Number 5. When facing personal loss. Loss is one of the most painful realities of life. It arrives without warning, leaving behind silence, one that feels heavy, empty, and unbearable. In these moments, words often fail. No explanation can undo what has happened. No comforting phrase can truly erase the grief. And yet Stoicism teaches us that silence is not a void, it is a refuge, the Stoic perspective on loss. Seneca reminds us, the day which we fear as our last is but the birthday of eternity. Death, change, the loss of people, opportunities, or even parts of ourselves. These are not interruptions in life, they are life. To resist them is to resist the natural flow of existence. Marcus Aurelius in his Meditations wrote, "Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs." Loss is painful, but pain does not mean suffering. Suffering comes from resisting reality, from wishing things were different than they are. A Stoic does not fight loss. A Stoic faces it, accepts it, and finds strength in silence. Why staying silent in grief is powerful. When facing loss, the instinct is to fill the silence, to talk, to seek answers, to make sense of the pain. But what if the deepest healing comes not from words, but from quiet reflection? Silence allows us to process emotions without judgment. Instead of drowning in distractions, we sit with our grief and understand it. Honor what was lost. Rather than speaking out of sorrow, we acknowledge the depth of our feelings in stillness. Find clarity in pain. Instead of fighting reality, we see it for what it is. C.S. Lewis, after losing his wife, wrote in A Grief Observed, "The pain I feel now is the happiness I had before." That's the deal. This is the wisdom of Stoicism, to recognize that grief exists because love existed. That loss only hurts because something meaningful was once there, and that instead of running from grief, we can sit with it in silence. A Stoic response to personal loss. Imagine a man who has lost his closest friend. Others tell him to stay strong, to move on, to focus on the future. But he knows that grief is not something to be rushed, so he chooses silence. Instead of distracting himself, he walks alone in nature. Instead of numbing the pain, he allows himself to feel it fully. He does not demand explanations from the universe, he accepts the reality before him. And slowly, through quiet acceptance, the pain changes. It does not disappear, but it becomes part of him, rather than controlling him. What you gain by staying silent in grief. 1. You give yourself space to heal. Instead of forcing yourself to move on too quickly, you allow grief to unfold naturally. 2. You strengthen your emotional resilience. By accepting loss, rather than resisting it, you build inner strength. 3. You avoid the trap of useless words. Not all pain needs to be spoken. Sometimes silence holds more wisdom than conversation. 4. You learn to appreciate the present. When we recognize that everything is temporary, we cherish what remains even more. A Stoic practice for dealing with loss. 1. Sit in silence. Find a quiet space. Let yourself feel the weight of your emotions without trying to change them. 2. Reflect on impermanence. Ask yourself, was I ever promised that this person, this moment, this phase of life would last forever? The answer is always no. 3. Honor what was lost. Instead of resisting loss, embrace the memories, the lessons, and the love that existed. 4. Live with greater awareness. Knowing that all things are temporary, how can you live more fully today? The strength in letting go. We do not own the people or things in our lives. We only borrow them for a time, and when they leave us, it is not a punishment. It is simply the natural rhythm of life. A Stoic does not fight this truth. A Stoic does not run from grief. A Stoic stays silent, accepts, and finds peace in the knowledge that nothing is ever truly lost. It only changes form. And now, let's explore another moment where silence becomes the ultimate strength when dealing with injustice. Number 6. When confronted with ignorance. There is a particular kind of battle that cannot be won, the battle against ignorance. It is an argument with no foundation, a storm that rages without direction. And yet, how often do we find ourselves tempted to engage, to correct, to explain? A Stoic, however, knows that silence is often the wisest answer. The futility of arguing with ignorance. Marcus Aurelius offers this reflection. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Ignorance is not simply a lack of knowledge. It is a refusal to learn. It is stubbornness disguised as certainty. When you argue with someone who does not wish to understand, you are not debating, you are exhausting yourself. A Stoic response. Stay silent and observe. Imagine this. You are in a heated discussion with someone who insists on spreading falsehoods. Their words are loud, emotional, unwavering, yet clearly incorrect. Your instinct is to correct them, to set the record straight. But will reasoning with them truly change their mind? Or will it simply feed their ignorance with your frustration? Seneca reminds us, if a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable. Some people do not wish to see. Some people do not wish to grow. And your energy is better spent on things you can control, your own wisdom, your own composure. The power of choosing silence. By staying silent, you protect your peace. You refuse to be drawn into an argument that serves no purpose. You demonstrate self-discipline, confidence, and wisdom. And perhaps most importantly, you set an example. Because true knowledge does not need to shout. It does not need to convince. It simply exists, unshaken, waiting for those ready to seek it. What you gain by staying silent in the face of ignorance. 1. You conserve your energy. Instead of engaging in pointless debates, you save your energy for meaningful conversations. 2. You maintain your composure. Ignorance thrives on reaction. When you refuse to react, you take away its power. 3. You command respect. A person who does not argue is seen as wise and self-assured. Others begin to notice the strength of your restraint. 4. You allow ignorance to expose itself. Given time, falsehoods collapse under their own weight. The less you engage, the sooner the truth prevails. How to handle ignorance like a Stoic. 1. Pause and assess. Ask yourself, will this person listen, or are they simply speaking to be heard? If the answer is the latter, stay silent. 2. Let actions speak louder than words. Rather than arguing, demonstrate your wisdom through calmness and integrity. 3. Detach from the need to prove yourself. A wise man does not seek validation from the foolish. Let go of the desire to be right. 4. Move on with peace. As Epictetus advises, it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. Some battles are not worth fighting. The strength in letting go. Ignorance demands an audience. It seeks attention, reaction, and engagement. But when you refuse to respond, when you choose silence over frustration, you take away its influence. A Stoic does not waste words on the unwilling. A Stoic does not argue with the closed-minded. A Stoic stays silent, walks away, and lets wisdom speak for itself. And now, let's explore another moment where silence becomes the ultimate discipline when dealing with injustice. Number 7. When encountering injustice. Injustice exists everywhere. It manifests in corruption, in inequality, in the mistreatment of others. And when faced with it, the natural impulse is to react, to fight back, to demand fairness, to correct the wrong. But Stoicism teaches us something different. There is a time to speak and a time to stay silent. The Stoic approach to injustice. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. When we respond to injustice with rage, impulsivity, or blind retaliation, we become part of the very thing we oppose. A Stoic does not allow external wrongs to corrupt his inner peace. Instead, he chooses measured action over reckless words. He fights battles with wisdom, not emotion. And sometimes, the most powerful tool against injustice is silence. The power of controlled silence. Imagine this. You witness a colleague being unfairly treated at work. You feel anger rising. You want to call out the injustice in the moment, to raise your voice, to argue, but you pause. Instead of reacting impulsively, you observe, you gather information. You consider the best course of action, one that does not escalate the situation, but actually creates change. This is what Stoic silence looks like. It is not passivity. It is not cowardice. It is discipline. It is the ability to resist emotional reactivity and act with strategic wisdom. Seneca's wisdom. Endurance over anger. Seneca warns us, a sword never kills anyone. It is a tool in the killer's hand. Injustice itself is not what destroys us. It is how we react to it. We cannot always control injustice, but we can control our response. A Stoic does not allow anger to dictate his actions. Instead, he stays calm. He thinks before he speaks. And in many cases, his silence is more powerful than any outburst could ever be. How to handle injustice like a Stoic. 1. Pause before reacting. Instead of instantly engaging, take a step back. Breathe. Ask yourself, is this the right moment to act? 2. Observe and gather strength. Not all battles are won through words. Sometimes, waiting, watching and preparing leads to more effective action. 3. Focus on what you can control. Injustice often lies outside of our control, but our response, our ability to act with patience and integrity, is always ours to choose. 4. Take purposeful action, not emotional action. If you must act, act wisely. Take steps that actually change the situation rather than escalating it. What you gain by staying silent in the face of injustice. 1. You retain your power. The moment you react emotionally, you give your opponent control. But by staying silent, you remain in control of yourself. 2. You protect your peace. Injustice feeds on outrage. But a Stoic does not let external events dictate his inner state. 3. You command respect. A person who speaks only when necessary, who chooses their battles with wisdom, is far more influential than one who reacts to everything. 4. You take the best action, not just any action. A calm mind sees solutions that anger never could. By staying silent, you create space for strategic and meaningful change, strength over reaction. The world is filled with injustice, and we are not Stoics because we ignore it, but because we respond to it with wisdom, not impulsiveness. A fool reacts with rage. A wise man chooses when to act, when to speak, and when to stay silent. Because not every battle is fought with words, and sometimes the most powerful response is the one left unspoken. Now let's move on to another moment where silence becomes a shield when dealing with personal attacks. Number 8. When managing insults. Insults are like daggers thrown in the dark, sharp, aimed to wound, and often fueled by ignorance or insecurity. But as a Stoic, you do not have to be their target. You do not have to catch them. The moment you react to an insult, you validate it. You give power to the one who insulted you. But when you stay silent, composed, and unshaken, you take that power away. The Stoic response to insults. Epictetus reminds us, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. No one can make you feel offended unless you allow it. No insult has meaning unless you give it meaning. A Stoic understands that words are just sounds in the air. They carry no weight unless the mind chooses to attach emotion to them. Why silence is the strongest defense. Imagine this. You are in a heated discussion, and suddenly someone throws a sharp insult your way. You feel the sting, the rising urge to defend yourself, to strike back. But instead you pause. You say nothing. You remain still, unbothered. In that moment, the insult loses its force. The person who insulted you expects anger, a reaction, an argument. Instead, they are met with silence, confidence, and control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You always have the option of having no opinion. There is never any need to get worked up or to trouble your soul about things you can't control." An insult is not a reflection of you, it is a reflection of the one who speaks it. By staying silent, you let the insult reveal the person who said it, not the person it was aimed at. A practical example of Stoic silence. Consider the story of Mahatma Gandhi, who faced endless insults and provocations in his fight for India's independence. People cursed him, mocked him, even physically attacked him. Yet, he remained silent, unmoved. Instead of responding with anger, he responded with calmness and dignity. And what happened? His silence exposed the ignorance of his attackers. It made him stronger, not weaker. Would an insult truly harm you if you refused to acknowledge it? Would an offensive remark have power if it was met with nothing but indifference? What you gain by staying silent in the face of insults. 1. You preserve your inner peace. The moment you react emotionally, you lose control. By staying silent, you protect your state of mind. 2. You command respect. A person who does not get rattled by insults exudes confidence and self-mastery. 3. You do not lower yourself. When you argue with someone who insults you, you give them your time and energy. A Stoic never wastes effort on things beneath them. 4. You shift the power dynamic. A person who insults you wants a reaction. When you give them nothing, they become powerless. How to handle insults like a Stoic. 1. Pause before reacting. Feel the urge to respond, but resist it. Let the insult pass through you like wind. 2. Detach from the words. Ask yourself, does this insult truly define me? Or is it simply the reflection of another person's mindset? 3. See it as a test of your discipline. Every insult is an opportunity to strengthen your self-control. 4. Let silence be your response. Instead of speaking, respond with a calm gaze, a small nod, or nothing at all. 5. Move on without a second thought. Do not dwell. Your energy is too valuable to waste on meaningless words. The true strength of silence. Weak men react. Strong men choose their responses. A fool fights every insult. A Stoic knows that not every battle is worth fighting, because silence is not weakness, it is control. It is the ultimate power. And sometimes, the best way to win the war of words is to never engage in the first place. Now let's move to another crucial moment where silence holds the greatest wisdom, when dealing with failure. Number 9. When overcoming the fear of perfection. Perfection is a trap. It paralyzes the mind, feeds self-doubt, and delays action. We convince ourselves that unless something is flawless, it is not worth doing. But the Stoics saw through this illusion. The pursuit of perfection is not a pursuit of excellence, it is a pursuit of fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of being not enough. A Stoic, however, does not seek perfection. A Stoic seeks progress. The Stoic view on perfectionism. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." The message is clear. Stop overthinking. Start acting. The obsession with perfection leads to stagnation. We become so afraid of making mistakes that we never move forward. But life is not about avoiding flaws. It is about constantly improving despite them. A Stoic understands that true mastery comes from repetition, not from waiting for the perfect moment. Why perfectionism is an enemy of growth. Imagine this. You want to start a new project, learn a skill, or express yourself. But instead of taking action, you hesitate, you revise, plan, and overthink. You wait for perfection, and as a result, you never begin. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." The fear of not being perfect is worse than imperfection itself. The delay, the hesitation, the regret of inaction, these are far more damaging than any small mistake. A Stoic recognizes this and chooses to act. The power of silence in overcoming perfectionism. One of the biggest barriers to overcoming perfectionism is overanalyzing. We drown ourselves in endless internal debate. Is this good enough? What if people judge me? A Stoic stays silent. Instead of engaging in self-doubt, instead of feeding the endless loop of what-ifs, he acts in quiet determination. Perfectionists talk about their plans. A Stoic works on them. Perfectionists worry about how something will be received. A Stoic creates and lets the work speak for itself. A real-life example: Da Vinci's unfinished masterpieces. Leonardo da Vinci, one of the greatest minds in history, left countless works unfinished. He constantly refined his ideas. Yet many of his works, including the Mona Lisa, remained forever incomplete in his eyes. But did that stop his legacy? Did the world dismiss his genius because he never deemed his works perfect? Not at all. His impact came not from perfection, but from the courage to create despite imperfection. Would you rather leave unfinished ideas in your mind or imperfect yet meaningful creations in the world? What you gain by letting go of perfection. 1. You break free from fear. The fear of imperfection disappears when you accept that flaws are part of the process. 2. You start taking action. No more delays, no more waiting for the right time. You begin. And that is the most important step. 3. You improve faster. The only way to get better is through practice. Perfectionism stalls learning, but action leads to growth. 4. You find peace. A perfectionist is never satisfied, but a Stoic finds fulfillment in progress. How to overcome perfectionism like a Stoic. 1. Accept imperfection as part of life. Nothing in nature is perfect, yet everything functions beautifully. Why should you be any different? 2. Shift your focus to progress, not flawlessness. Set goals based on growth, not perfection. 3. Silence the inner critic. The mind will always whisper doubts. Stay silent. Keep moving. 4. Take action before you feel ready. Start before you're comfortable. Perfection is not a prerequisite for progress. 5. Let your work speak for itself. Don't obsess over how others will perceive your efforts. Create, improve, and let results unfold naturally. The strength to begin. A fool waits for perfection. A Stoic moves forward despite imperfection. There will never be a perfect moment, a perfect plan, or a perfect outcome. But there is this moment, right now. And what you do with it is what defines you. Now, let's move to another moment where silence gives you strength, when letting go of things beyond your control. Throughout this journey, we have uncovered the immense power of knowing when to stay silent. We explored how choosing silence in moments of anger, criticism, injustice, and fear leads not to weakness, but to strength. A strength that comes from control, wisdom, and inner peace. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the essence of Stoicism. It is not about suppressing emotions, but about mastering them. It is about understanding that your energy is finite, and wasting it on impulsive reactions, unnecessary conflicts, and meaningless distractions only weakens you. Silence is not just an absence of words, it is an active choice, a decision to rise above pettiness, a practice of restraint that prevents regret, a tool to sharpen your focus and cultivate wisdom. Imagine how your life could change if you embraced this philosophy. What if instead of reacting in anger, you paused and responded with measured calm? What if instead of defending yourself against baseless criticism, you let your actions speak louder than words? What if instead of seeking validation, you quietly pursued excellence for its own sake? By adopting the Stoic wisdom of silence, you gain control over your emotions, sharpen your focus, and build unshakable confidence. You become a person of depth, presence, and true power. Now take a moment to reflect. Which lesson resonated with you the most? Comment below and share your thoughts. Your insights may inspire someone else on their Stoic journey. If you found this lesson valuable, consider subscribing to Stoic Teachings today. Our goal is to share timeless Stoic philosophy in a way that is practical, actionable, and life-changing. And remember, the strongest voice is often the one that chooses to stay silent.